Chapter 6 Episode 27 Interlude Eliaria's Friends. Sometime after Ryoma's departure, at a time when everyone's lives, regardless of status, became a little more animated as the new year approached. 5 girls were being served tea and snacks inside a capital mansion, but only one of them had even touched them, the daughter of the manor, Eliaria. "Girls, you needn't be so nervous. It will all work out. Kanan, feel free to indulge." "So you say." "Kanan, with all due respect, your nervousness is rubbing off on me." "Why?" "Your father's account, Michelle. You should be demonstrating to us what we should be doing." "Ha. Alas, our country sort of fell into our laps as my family furthered our studies and research generation after generation. I'm not one to brag, but my parents and I would always prioritize our curiosity over etiquette. We know the bare minimum required, but nothing more. Riella should be a bit better. Then don't brag about it. Still, I'm not one to talk when it comes to etiquette. Should I have at least worn a dress or something? We were told just to be ourselves. This is good enough. Besides, they'll see right through any airs we try to put on now." "Really? Well, maybe you're right. You're awfully calm, Miyabi." "Au contraire. It's more like I've given up. I've been in a situation like this before. I just want to introduce my friends to my family." Elia, her 4 friends stared at her, as if to insinuate that was the very source of their nervousness. At this point, a knock was heard from the ornately decorated door. A maid entered and said, "Thank you for your patience. The Duke has arrived." The 4 friends sprang to their feet, and Elia elegantly rose to hers a beat later. Then, a young couple and an old man entered through the door. "I regret that I kept you waiting. I am Reinhard, Duke of Jamil. Thank you for spending time with my daughter." "Father and mother, grandfather, what took you so long?" "I'm sorry, darling. We had an unexpected guest." "You look well, Elia." "I'm happy to see you well, grandfather. And you as well, mother, father." Once reunited, the family turned their attention to their guests. "Could you introduce your friends to us, Elia?" "Yes, of course. The most nervous one, over there, is Kanan. I am Kanan Schuser. It is my ambition to become a crafter of magical items, my lord." "I see, so you are Kanan," Elia's mother answered. "Elia has written to me about you. I know of your family." "Schuser. How is Defal?" "I used to see him often back in the day, and I was told when I visited the shop the other day that he has since retired." "Gramps, my grandfather is doing well. He didn't retire because he was ill or anything of the sort. It was just his age. His eyes and fingers don't work like they used to. He simply decided to retire one day, saying that he couldn't make them like he used to. But he's still making items every day as a hobby, better than what most makers can make, and shouts the apprentices into shape, my lord." "I'm glad to hear that. If you get a chance, please tell him that Reinbach sends his regards." "You betcha." Kanan's eyes went wide at that social faux pas, but the 3 adults chuckled and brushed it off. While Kanan didn't realize, her constantly twitching dog ears and tail had already betrayed her nervousness and anxiety. Without missing a beat, Elia pushed Miyabi to introduce herself. "I'm Miyabi Saionji. As you may know, my father is Pioro, president of the Saionji Company. On behalf of myself and my father, thank you for the lovely invitation, my lord." "So you're Pioro's daughter. Your father has helped out our family a great deal. He told me he has a daughter, but I believe this is our first meeting. Pleased to make your acquaintance." "Thank you, my lord." Next, we have Riella. Riella Clifford, my lord. Youngest daughter of Baron Clifford. It is an honor and privilege to be granted a meeting with such a gracious member of the dukedom. "Thank you for the polite introduction. No need for formalities, we're not in public. I feel safer knowing you have a friend like her, Elia. I'd simply love to learn more about you." "Yes, my lady. I will do my utmost," Riella said feebly. The adults were quietly resisting the urge to smile at her stoicism. Lastly, Michelle. She is a lady, but she wears men's clothing. Please do not get the wrong impression, father. Of course. Michelle. The first daughter of Wilden, I've been told. An honor that you already know of me, my lord. But what mistakes could there be made about me? Right. I apologize for jumping to conclusions, but I read in one of Elia's letters that you are quite popular among female students, so you mistook her for a boy and went mad at the idea before insisting that Elia explain the matter in her next letter. Isn't that right, dear? It's only natural for her to interact with the boys through the academy, Elise's grandfather interjected. Even if Michelle had been a boy, it's not like they were dating. You made quite a mountain out of a molehill with this, it's pitiful. The Duke seemed smaller and less impressive than he did when entering the room after these retorts from his daughter, wife, and father. However, he had succeeded in easing the nerves of the children in the room. They all seemed more relaxed now. Goodness, where are my manners? Please, everybody take a seat, Reinhardt said. Do bring us some more tea, would you kindly, Elise requested of the maid. I've gathered some things from Elia's letters. You are all on the same team, yes? Correct, my lord. That brings back memories, Elise chimed in. I remember crawling the academy dungeon in my student years. I hope my little Elia isn't holding you back. On the contrary. We all have differing skill sets, so I think we're a great team. Elia is excellent at her studies, and she's the top spellcaster in our class, especially when it comes to firepower on speed. Her attacks make her an essential party member in the field. Sword fighting is her weakest subject, but she still always keeps up with the class and scores highly among the girls. Kanan and I will usually take the front position, but she helps us out when we're struggling. She always volunteers for the little things as well. Noble-born students in the other teams tend to leave menial jobs like setting up the tent or cooking to the commoner students are their own servants. And if they have to do that sort of grunt work themselves, they often have no end of complaints about it. To be honest, we didn't even know if we should let Elia do that sort of work before we saw her plugging away at it. After Michelle, Riella, and Kanan each gave their own testimony, the adults seemed relieved. Not half bad at the sword and top of the class in magic. That's not all from the training we gave you before you started the academy. I'm proud of you, Elia. Reinbach added, it sounds like you have earned all this high praise, Elia. And don't concern yourself when it comes to making Elia do grunt work, as you called it. At the academy, all students are treated fairly, regardless of their standing. Well, in fairness, that rule was a pure formality when I attended the academy, but we don't want to bring her up in such a way that she can't function without a servant. Questions of class post-graduation aside, it's a learning experience for her. I'm glad you're doing well, Elia, and that you've made such good friends. Mother. I was worried myself, though maybe not as much as my husband here. I'm proud of my part in her discipline and education, and of the young woman she has become. But when it comes to her future in high society, well... Oh, her friends chimed in. Mother. What are you telling them? She doesn't mean it in a bad way. Elia's nice and easy to get along with. And she treats everyone equally. But she's too straight, or genuine, to play those games like all of the noble kids do. Yes, I know I have to entertain people like that sometimes. But all they ever do is boast about themselves. They look down on anyone of lower status, insulting their etiquette or telling them to know their place. They do nothing but brag to other families of equal status and try to suck up to anyone they consider to be above them. Blowing the tiniest of things out of proportion, jumping at every opportunity to knock each other down. Almost like they're just playing a game to see who can mimic their parents the closest. Don't let those kids hear you say things like that, Elia. Might hit a bit too close to home. Oh, of course. I would never say such things publicly. I wouldn't exactly take their side either, though. Much as I don't like to judge people, conversations like that are inescapable on campus. I just wish they wouldn't rope me into their affairs. Plus change. We had those circles in my time too. Contests of bragging and snide comments soon turned into a volley of insults. They'll just develop different tactics with age. Oh, I know plenty of adults that act their shoe size over their age. Plenty of them contribute nothing themselves, yet constantly criticize the actions of others. You seem to have quite a few sharp opinions yourself, my lady. I can tell where Elia got that from. I'm just happy to see my granddaughter isn't a part of that sort of circle. Of course not. It's just embarrassing and immature despite what those children might believe. Ryoma's much more like a noble in his maturity. Michelle took notice of this comment. Ryoma. I've heard that name before. Who is he? He is he, right? Yes. You've never really talked about him, Elia. I've never really heard much about him either. Just that he's a friend of Elia's. I've been curious about that. I think she's told me Abby a bit more than she did us. It just seemed like it was something she was enthusiastic to tell us about, so we didn't ask. Oh, you haven't told them about Ryoma? Elisa asked. No, I don't believe I've explained it properly. It wasn't my intention to hide it. I just wouldn't know where to start, Elia said, to the agreement of the adults and Miyabi, who were already familiar with him. I didn't think much of it since I didn't have any friends until I started at the academy. After getting to know my classmates and other students in the grades above me, I started to realize that Ryoma was quite different from most people his age in terms of his mental faculties. But he's not a bad person. He's very nice, in fact. Isn't he? Yes. I was the first in my family to meet him. One of my men had been injured and Ryoma saved his life. He told us he was raised by his grandparents, who were both adventurers. He's a year younger than Elia, but very knowledgeable and a good hunter. And decent at magic too, though his spells were focused on improving the quality of life. He must be a very talented boy. Of course, he's only a year younger than any of us. Talented. Yes, indeed. He can also be a little unusual sometimes. Unusual. Ryoma studies slimes as a hobby. He talks about them the way you talk about magic circles, Michelle. Ah, that was all it took for Riella and Kanan to get a grasp on Ryoma's character. Why are you dragging me into this? The comparison was apt. Indeed. It's easy to see that he is also the type of person who has blinders onto everything except his particular interest. Michelle grumbled to herself. It also goes for both of you that you are very knowledgeable about your interests and many other things. Just as Ryoma helped me catch a slime for my first familiar, you've taught me everything I know about magic circles, Michelle. Fine. I'm not exactly flattered, but I can live with that. That explains why you have 3 rare slimes with you, Elia. Cleaner, healer, and scavenger respectively, yes? They're terribly convenient. We got some jealous looks during camping drills at the academy dungeon. We had a simple bathroom and an actual bath thanks to Elia's slime and Michelle's earth magic. Not even the teachers had it that good. Which put me, the negotiator of the team, in a tough situation once those nobles demanded we hand it over or make them their own facilities. That was quite a fiasco. The first drill is always rough every year. I'm sure most students cover the basics before entering the academy, but you only acquire skills by practicing them over and over again. One can only hope for allies who can share the workload and cover each other's weakness. Nowadays, too many adults, let alone children, conflate mere selfishness with living honorably as a noble. Now that I think about it, Elia continued telling tales of things that had happened in the academy, and her friends gradually warmed up to her stories. Eventually, the sun began to sink into the horizon. Excuse me, my lord, your appointment is due. Is it time already? Father, you mean to say you had other plans when you knew I was bringing friends over? I'm sorry, Elia. I'm meeting a schoolmate for dinner, one whom I haven't seen in some time. Father, what's the matter? You look positively astonished. You had friends in school? The question froze the air of the cozy room, replacing it with palpable tension. Reinhardt's face twitched at the remark. Why would you say that? Well, you've never gone to visit a friend before, and you always seem so unhappy when you speak of your time at the academy. Right, well, stumped, Reinhard turned to his wife and father but was only met with stifled laughter. Reinhard sighed, knowing he had to bear this burden himself. I don't enjoy admitting it, but my school days were not much fun for me. Still, I had a friend or two whom I could trust. Take Elise, for example. We were good friends long before we decided to marry. Elise giggled. Now that most certainly brings back memories. I didn't know. I'm sorry, Father. Don't apologize. You make it sound like you're pitying me. Don't worry about it. I do visit my friends from time to time. I just haven't seen the friend I'm seeing tonight in a long time. Then why now? I've heard that Ryoma visited his land some time ago and discovered that, despite our status as nobles and our professional differences, my friend still cared about me. I figured today would be a good day to pay him a visit. I see. He was quite surprised to hear from me, apparently. It's a lucky thing to have a friend who's still trying to help you after so many years. I'm hoping that you'll make a friend like that, Elia. You don't need too many of them, just one will do. Yes, Father. But don't worry about that, Elia declared and looked over her 4 friends. I have 4 friends like that right here, and 5 if I include Ryoma. Elia. Now that's the spirit. Straight to the point. Sheesh, now I'm getting bashful. Oh. Perchance you all didn't really want to be my friends? Elia asked, and the 4 reassured Elia, laughing. The adults warmly smiled at the children. I'm really happy to see this. You were already lucky enough to meet these friends, Elia. I'm really sorry I can't stay and hear more stories, but I must be going. Please, stay as long as you like. Yes, I'd love to hear more stories, Elise said. Why don't you all stay the night? I wanted to discuss the gown for Elia's next party anyway. And not only that, we just received new samples of Ryoma's beauty products. He was quite adamant that we give very detailed feedback. Would you care to indulge? Ryoma sent you beauty products. We made a little deal a while back. I won't deny my own interest in them, but he said something about how it was relevant to his study of medicine, something he'd already learned the basics of from his grandmother. He's always been very studious. Confidentially, these beauty products of his are not only simple to use but of quite high quality as well. Interesting. My mother studies medicine as well, actually. With the atmosphere in the room seemingly rekindled, the girls kept chattering away merrily into the night.